And we are now joined by the president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Dan Diker, my good friend. So much to ask and so little time, so let's get right to it, Dan. Secretary Blinken says it's a decisive moment and a hostage ceasefire agreement must be achieved. Will he have his way?
Well, it's an open question, Steve. I think there's a pretty substantial misunderstanding about the price that Israel is being pressured to pay for agreeing to what is essentially a Hamas initiative for which there is support in the West, and that is for the unknown number of live hostages that are proposed to be returned. And the number is not known. It could be 15, it could be 18, it could be 30. But let's bear in mind that Israeli intelligence assessment...
Dan, it's probably decreasing by the day. The number is probably becoming lower by the day. Every day we wait.
It could well be, Steve. And what is very clear, though, is if this multi-stage deal is done, it would essentially be a death sentence for the majority of hostages still being held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So there's a huge price to be paid. And I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is also concerned about the Philadelphia route, because if Israel gives up the Philadelphia route, Hamas rearms, resupplies, and Israel is essentially, from a cognitive point of view and a physical point of view, lost the war.
So essentially you're saying Bibi should say no to the Americans at this point?
I'm not offering, Steve, I'm not offering a policy solution. I'm barely trying to contextualize the deal that many in the international media do not contextualize. Everyone's talking about the hostage deal. This is not a hostage. This is not the hostage deal. It leaves the vast majority of hostages in captivity in Gaza, subject to a 6 to 8 week waiting period, which Prime Minister Netanyahu and many of those around him are sure that we will never reach because of the Hamas.
We need to get to
the price that
I need to ask you a few more questions,
will
Dan.
go up exponentially.
I need to ask you a few more questions. The threats from Iran and Hezbollah of attacking Israel are still out there, perhaps delayed, waiting the outcome of ceasefire talks. Is the U.S. trying to leverage the potential agreement to avoid the reprisals and an expansion of the war?
The U.S., in our view, Steve, is trying to, in their view, avoid a regional war. But I think what's clear is that a regional war has already been launched by the Iranian regime and their multi-front proxy terror organizations. It seems right now, with Hezbollah intensifying the ring of fire and the depth of fire, that they are, with great adventure and confidence, increasing to Israel's north and Israel's center, as well as Hamas continuing to fire rockets and continuing to fight with rather robust terror troops in Gaza. It seems that the only way that Israel can change the strategic balance in the north is through a very high-powered military campaign.
So, Dan, let me ask you this.
States does not want.
So, let me ask you this, Dan, because before we run out of time, the situation in the north is truly intolerable. Today, a swarm of UAVs injured a group of Israelis in the Galilee. 318 days of provocations. How can it be that a regional superpower like Israel hasn't initiated a strike on Hezbollah already?
Well, Israel has initiated a strike, but it has limited itself as to the expansiveness of this military operations until such time that Israel is ready. Remember, Steve, the prospect of a much larger military conflict is very real, and it seems that the Iranian regime again has placed a ring of fire around Israel. So it'll be up to Israel to decide when the best time it has in order to change the strategic balance. Obviously, it cannot continue this way in the north. No country in the world can live, especially a teeny country like Israel, which is 22,000 kilometers, including the territories of Judea and Samaria. It cannot live like this, and obviously something very substantial needs to happen to change it. And it doesn't seem that diplomacy is going to change the strategic balance with 80,000 Israelis, refugees in their own country.
Dan, I'm sorry we're out of time, but I did want to take one last second to say that I'm so glad to see you back in action after back surgery. Good to have you with us. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.